The 2025 NFL Draft is over for every team, including the New York Jets. It's time for our resident professor to hand out his grades on how they performed. Boy Green Daily starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Let's go!
Put your seatbelts on. Get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcasts. As you head on in, like the video, hit subscribe. That's a free way to contribute, baby, here on the program. So make sure you take full advantage and do so. Speaking of taking full advantage, before we start off the show, on our live draft show last Thursday, we gave away 2 homage giveaways, and I want to give another shout out to these 2 people because I have not heard back from you yet. So 2 people ended up winning. Cole Young _28, you won one of our homage giveaways, and Jet Dogs 101, you won the other one. Jet Dogs 101, you are the t-shirt winner, and Cole Young, you're the hoodie winner. So please reach out ASAP. I'd love to deliver you your prizes. You can reach out on any social media portal at boygreen25, BOY, green the color 25, or you can email me, Paul, A the letter, ESDENJR at gmail.com. And again, if we don't hear from you soon over the next coming days, we'll have to give that away to whoever is next in line on the prize wheel. So please keep that in mind. With that being said, someone else who was on that live draft show, Drew Beatty, our draft professor from draftprofessors.com and at Iron City Film on social media. What's up, Drew?
How we doing, Paul? Glad to be back.
Yeah, of course. So how is it when the draft is complete and all your months of hard work and preparation and analysis, we go through the draft and then boom, it's over?
Yeah, it's funny because, like, again, I love the draft more than absolutely anything. I do this just purely for the love of the game. You wouldn't be able to make it through grading 200-plus players if you didn't, like, just live and breathe this stuff. But it is just a massive wave of relief. Like, I'll probably sleep for a week straight as soon as this is done. Because I couldn't tell you the last time I got an 8-hour sleep from all this tape we're grinding. So it is nice. You know, we'll take like a weekish to relax and stuff, and then we'll dive straight into next year's class. So
all right, there you go. You're a monster, for God's sakes, but we love you, Drew. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to bring up each pick on the screen so people can follow along at home. And again, some of this you may have already discussed being with us, a couple of days ago during our live show. But we'll recap each pick. And then after, I will force you to a gun to the back of your head to give us a full grade on this puppy so we can, know how to feel about it. Drew, you're going to show us the way from that perspective. So without further ado, we start off in the first round. The New York Jets with the 7th overall pick selected Missouri offensive tackle Armand Membou out of Missouri. He was the selection for the New York Jets, widely speculated for a large chunk of time, and it ended up coming to fruition here. He was the 2nd offensive lineman off the board behind Will Campbell, went 4th overall to the Patriots. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I gave a brief synopsis on this one on the draft show, and I'll just echo everything I said. Starting this thing strong off, I'll grade each individual pick as we go too. I'll get this
sure,
one
yeah, great,
strong.
Awesome.
That Membou should have gone all 3 picks before the Jets, and the Jets were the first team to actually correctly draft and go through the correct process and finally take the best offensive tackle in this draft. And I understand back-to-back offensive tackle picks is not sexy. It's kind of, it's not fun for a fan base to have to go back-to-back offensive tackles in the top 10 especially. But the value of having Olubushanu to be your bookend left tackle for the next 10 years, and now you put in Armand Membou to be a franchise tackle on the other side, is invaluable. The Jets, not to mention you add in Elijah Vera-Tucker and Joe Tippmann and the young stars they have on the interior right there. This is going to be a top 5 unit in the league for the next decade or close to it. It's like, whether it's Justin Fields or whether you draft somebody next year, whenever you get your future quarterback in here, the guy you know is your future, it's going to help his development so much. It's going to free up the run game for whoever you get in next after Breece Hall if the future is questionable with him, which it seems like it is. it opens up so many avenues for your team. It's the most important part of team building, and the Jets have gotten it out of the way. I'm super impressed with Aaron Glenn and that whole first year regime. It's very, very difficult and rare for teams to have correct process like this in their first year. So I am incredibly impressed with them. They hit this pick out of the park. It was their best possible option right here. I think I mentioned Mason Graham being the best case scenario coming up with this. I've kind of changed my mind. Honestly, I think it's Mimbo. So I think they came away with the best possible pick at pick 7, and I just want to give them a round of applause for being the first team to actually correctly draft at that spot.
And the offensive line is complete. There's no debate. There's no position battle. Maybe they would dress it up as a position battle with the veteran they signed this offseason, Chukwuma Okorafor. But you just have this amazing 5. So I agree. Terrific. Again, some of us wanted other things like a certain tight end or something, but it's hard to be mad at putting an offensive line together and getting there. So they did not take, the piece of cheese. Again, they ate their veggies, and I think while that may taste a little sour right now, that ultimately, the long-term health will be pretty gosh darn good. All right, let's go to the second round. Another one that has been commonly mocked forever. Number 42 overall, the New York Jets selected LSU tight end Mason Taylor. And let me make sure I have this right here for the draft results, which I also have in front of me here. Okay, yeah, so he was the third tight end off the board. Colston Loveland went first, as Drew predicted. Tyler Warren and then Mason Taylor here. And it ended up starting a tight end run because there were some other tight ends that started going off the board throughout the rest of the second round. So it looks like the Jets had the right temperature there as well. Mason Taylor, 42 overall. What's the grade on this one?
So for me, take this one with a grain of salt because I'm one of the lowest people on Mason Taylor out there. So this is probably going to be lower than most people. Fit-wise, the pick is great. But just as a player, I'm a lot lower. He's 95th on my board, so it was a pretty significant reach just compared to my board. So I'm going to give it a C+. But the fit of Mason Taylor, you have – obviously, Warren and Loveland were the first-round guys. And then you get to the second round, and you've got, Elijah Arroyo is there tape-wise, but you've got massive injury concerns there, so he's really not in that same tier. It's really just Mason Taylor, and there was a large drop-off. So the Jets understood tight end was a huge need. They needed to address and get a true inline wide tight end guy, which Taylor is one of the few, only true inline wide tight end guys in this class. So the pick makes 100% sense. The thought process behind it is good. Regardless of what the players are, Jets fans can feel confident in the fact that this front office is very clearly going through the correct process. They know what they're doing. The thought process behind all these picks is correct. And Taylor is a player. I do think he has a very high ceiling. So there's a potential, he has the potential to turn into a top end tight end in this league. He's an explosive athlete. I thought the very few amount of times you got to see him run actual routes, he's a pretty good separator, not elite, but he was above average. I think he kind of gets oversold as a blocker sometimes. He's very willing and able to put his hand in the dirt and come in and be an inline wide tight end guy, but he's not somebody that's going to be able to drive out a 5-tech, out in space and really be like a dominant run blocker. So people talk about him like that a lot, and I just don't think he has the anchor for that in the run game. But he's, able to contribute. Now, where he really excels is at the catch point. This guy has a sixth sense where the ball is at all times. He tracks it so well, tracking over the shoulder. He's one of the best I've ever watched at the tight end position doing that. So goal line fades, especially him and Nussmeier just had that connection because he was so good at that in the red zone, especially. So he's great at that. My biggest issue or hang up with him was just there's the stuff he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. We very, very rarely ever got to see him do at LSU. So there's just a lot of projection there. And he could be able to do it completely fine. LSU just never asked him to. And then I look like an idiot because he's great. But it's just the fact that you never really get to see him do a lot of the things he's going to be asked to do at an NFL level, which makes me a little bit hesitant. But the tools are all there. It's just a matter of can this coaching staff refine him if he even needs it. Again, he could be able to do this and was just never asked to. But if he's somebody that needs development, can this coaching staff refine him in separation and coach him up as a blocker a little bit and just have him run an actual route tree because LSU never really asked him to.
Yeah, the thing that excites me is, first off, Mason Taylor is a massive upgrade over what the Jets had in their tight end room prior to the draft, so that helps. And then having a guy that can use him, they released the draft calls for all these players that they drafted. And for Mason Taylor, new offensive coordinator Tanner Angster, this is his first time being an offensive coordinator at the NFL level. He was just giddy saying, "Oh boy, you're the perfect fit for us. We got this plan for you." And I'm like, "Great, a coach having a plan for a player. Well, that's sort of unique here in Jets land, but sounds great." So hopefully that ends up being wonderful things. Again, the proof will ultimately be in the pudding on that one. Son of Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, baby. Hey, yeah. All right, let's go. Now we get our first surprise, right? So Armand Membu, that was mocked a lot. Mason Taylor, that was mocked a lot. Something that wasn't mocked a lot was taking a cornerback in the third round and 73 overall. The Jets took a Florida State cornerback. Oh God, I always make this up. Azarie, yeah, thank you. Azarie Thomas in the third round. This caused some divisiveness among fans during the draft and in the kind of days since. So, what can you tell us about this player?
Now, when I saw this pick come through on draft night, I was live on some draft show. The whole thing I was thinking in the back of my mind is I just cannot wait for Paul's show on Monday to talk about this pick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because this is one of my favorite picks of the entire draft, period. Taking him at 73, he's 25th on my board. He was a first round, or like the very top end of my second round grades. So he was my corner 2 behind Travis Hunter. So really corner 1 if you see Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I love Azarie Thomas. I think his tape is outstanding. And this is really, again, you can take a lot of solace in this front office being, you always hear best player available over positional need, right? You don't want to pass up on a great player to just fill a hole, which I think on day 2 is really important. And they see that they have, in my opinion, the best true corner in the draft falling to them at 73 overall, and they take it. So I'm not intimately familiar with what defensive scheme Aaron Glenn is going to bring in there. I don't know what he's going to be asking his corners
We don't know
to do.
yet. Yeah, he said what he was going to do is whenever he collects all his players for NC trade, all the major stuff, then he and his team are going to decide what scheme they're going to run. That's what he said publicly anyway.
Okay, well, again, that's good practice to mold your scheme to these players. It's you always hear Jimmys and Joes over X's and O's, right? The players are more important than the scheme is. You mold the scheme to the players, which in Azarie's case is extremely important because you had this guy running basically all bump and run at Florida State, and he's such a good press corner. He's awesome in press man coverage. You see it in the frame. I mean, he looks like he has 30-inch arms. Like he scratches ankles standing up. He's so lanky, massive frame. He's an incredible athlete, super twitchy. The acceleration, the recovery speed is never an issue. He does guess a lot in press coverage, which most of the good press corners do, and he'll guess wrong. But the good news with him is that he's plenty athletic enough to make up for guessing wrong. The problem is when you have a corner that is super like a gambler, but is too stiff to make up for it in the recovery speed. Azarie is super fluid, even at being 6'2", 6'3", super lanky, whatever he is. The ball skills are really, really incredible. He's physical at the catch point. He'll get in there and knock it out. So if they allow him to be this physical press man corner that he is in that scheme, I think he's going to be an outstanding boundary corner for a long time. This is obviously an A for me, being 25th on my board. One of my favorite picks of the entire draft.
Yeah, Darren Moody said exactly what you said, right? So corner does not seem to be an obvious need for the Jets on the surface because they have Sauce Gardner, they have Michael Carter II. They just paid $36 million to Brandon Stevens, and we'll get into a later pick because temporarily people said, oh, maybe this means there's a positional change for somebody else. We soon found out, and again, we'll get to that in the draft, of the Jets taking a safety, which eliminated that completely. But Darren Mucci, because they did pressers after every day of the draft, day 1, day 2, and he basically said what you said. He was like, BPA. We couldn't believe this guy was on the board. So we went, screw whatever, defensive tackle, some of these other things. Boom, we're getting this guy. And wow, terrific. So, okay. Love it. All right. The professorship looking great so far. So let's head into day 3 of this draft. And oh boy, this is the most conversated pick in the universe in New York Jets fan land. Number 110 overall, the New York Jets selected Georgia wide receiver Arian Smith. Drew.
So this is the first real head scratcher to me of this draft, and I don't want to come on here and be super negative. I've tried to talk up as many of these picks as much as I can.
Sure.
And I like Arian Smith in the range he was being talked about. I don't like Arian Smith right outside the top 100.
What was the range he was being talked about? Please help us.
Late 5th, early 6th, mid day 3, mid to late day 3. About 50 to 70-ish picks later than where he went.
Okay. Wow.
It's a reach. And the one, again, the biggest thing on this guy's scouting report, he's the fastest player I've ever watched, hands down. I'm on record on my Twitter account saying this guy was going to run a sub 4.2 at the combine. I was fully confident in that. I thought he was going to run a 4.19 or 4.18. He's that fast on tape. Bar none, the fastest player I've ever watched on tape. The problem is he doesn't really know how to play receiver, which is not what you want to hear when you draft a receiver 110th overall. It kind of became a running joke at the Senior Bowl because I think he ended up on the ground about 75% of the routes he tried to run in Mobile. he's very clear, like as raw of a player as you can get. He doesn't understand the nuances. He doesn't understand leverages. You can just see he's kind of out there running with reckless abandon. He doesn't really have any players. There's no gears turning in his head to try to manipulate the corner against man coverage. He's never like reading zones and figuring out where to stop the route. He's just running full speed because that's what he knows how to do. He's a track star. So there's always a floor as a vertical threat because, again, like this guy is going to be one of the fastest players in the NFL immediately. But if not the fastest, honestly. But the hands are catastrophically bad. I mean, the drop percentage was through the roof. It's like one of the highest ones PFF's ever recorded. He's never going to be able to fight through contact. He'll drop open balls. He'll drop contested balls. Not a very nuanced separator. You're praying that the coaching staff can teach this guy how to play the position, because if he does, I mean, you've got Tyreek Hill on steroids because the guy's faster than I think that. But you got a long way to go in coaching this guy up because, again, fastest player I've ever watched and graded, but he doesn't really know how to play the position. So
okay, a lot of fun. Okay, I love the honesty, and I think that's what the Jet fans appreciate here, whether for good or for bad. A lot of follow-up questions here. You said at the Senior Bowl he was on the ground a lot, and I remember because on these day 3 picks, I'm trying to get immediate analysis from people on what this is, and I was listening to Connor Rogers of NBC Sports. He was on the Bleacher Report live stream for all the picks, and he did, to put it bluntly, he did not like this pick at all in any universe, and he made this joke that he's like the wind blowing could knock this guy over. And I just come back to you. When you say he like was on the ground a lot, give us through the thought. Why was he on the ground a lot? Like what was happening that kept getting him tossed aside? Press coverage or what?
It's a mixture. He doesn't handle press well at all, again, because he's very, very small, but not a physical receiver at all. Like I said, doesn't have the nuance of the position. The release package is a mess. He's never like actively working to use his footwork to get a free release at the line of scrimmage. He's just kind of running into guys with reckless abandon. And he's also very, very unbalanced and out of control because he's so fast. So there was a mixture of things where like he's at the top of the stem and just gets a little bit hand fighty and can't handle it at all, and just ends up on the ground because he weighs 130 pounds. Or and that's hyperbole, he's not that light, but he's very light. And there's also times where he just is too out of control coming into his break and just loses his balance and ends up on the ground. So it's kind of a mixture of all the bad balance issues as a receiver and physicality issues. But yeah, it was like you heard some laughs from the stands in Mobile at that by a point because he fallen down like 6 or 7 routes on day 3 at that point of practice. It was pretty bad.
All right, let me just ask this one. Can you fix drops? Because he had to your point, here are the numbers, a 16.7% drop rate last season, which deserves the laugh. That is not only the highest in this draft, but one of the highest in college football. He had 10 drops last season. He was the only Power 4 player that had double-digit drops in all of college football. So take that for what you will. And so then I spin it around to say, can you fix drops? Because I want to go back to this evaluation. Maybe this won't be considered in the same bucket by you. But in 2018, Josh Allen came out of Wyoming, and his big criticism was he wasn't accurate. And I'm like, well, what the hell is going to change, get to the NFL level where the windows are tighter and things of that nature? So I thought Josh Allen would be a bust because I'm like, you can't fix that. Obviously, he's proved me wrong. He's the reigning MVP. I look like an idiot. But now I use that to spin it to this. Catching the football, is that something you can either do or not do? Or is there something the Jets can do to try to make that some part more consistent in his game to be catching it more than dropping it?
No, I mean, there's absolutely a mental factor. Like when you see him drop the open passes, those are focused mental drops, which is also fixable, but not in the same way as the contested issues are. But that absolutely, that is probably the easiest thing to teach a receiver how to do. The drop issues are the least of my concerns with Arian Smith. Honestly, the biggest concern with me is, can you teach a guy how to separate? Because he's got the intangibles on how to separate. He's got the athletic ability. You just have to teach him the nuances and the mental side of the position. Which again, you see nothing of it on tapes. You're starting from a blank slate with him. So that's the biggest concern with me is, can you teach him how to do that? The drops are easy to fix compared to his other issues to me.
Okay, there you go. That helps. And I love addressing this every once in a while when Drew's on the show. This dude's a Titans fan, isn't he? He's not a Jets fan. And I just want to make this very clear. I love it when we have Jets people on the show. Obviously, they're Jets people. It makes sense. We all eat and swim around each other. It makes a lot of sense. But the thing I love is bringing someone in from the outside, although I think Drew's part of the family now, but he's always adopted. But anywho, we bring him in here, and it's, to me, it's great to have someone from the outside. It's just unbiased. He is a Titans fan, and he also covers the draft. He's a professional. He covers the entire draft and gives his take. He's giving a grade by grade analysis of all these picks. And to be honest, I sort of prefer, in some respects, not being a Jets guy, because then we're just getting a straight shot. We're hearing it, as he's seeing it. So, Drew, I'll give you another chance to address this, because you like addressing this once every couple weeks.
Yeah. I fully understand it. I would be hesitant too if somebody came on here in a different jersey hanging on their wall than my team. But to everyone watching the show here, I consider myself an objective draft analyst before anything. I don't try to hide the fact that I'm a Titans fan. I am. But I am a draft fan and an objective draft analyst first and foremost before anything. So nothing is blinded or adjusted by my fandom at all in the slightest. So.
And to be honest, I've gone on a huge rant about this in yesteryear past. I love that you can be open about it, and I can be open about it. I don't want to tell the full story. I don't want to take up too much time and keep going down the draft grades, but I spoke to Steve Levy, who also went to SUNY Oswego. He was temporarily the voice of Monday Night Football for a period in time. And I pulled him aside when I was very young in my career, like 10, 11 years ago. I said, Steve, I'm a big Jets fan. Like, what do you do with that? Because, like, everyone tells me you got to ditch all that because you have to be this unbiased, no, nothing, whatever. You can't have any painted lines. And Steve Levy told me exactly that. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, ditch the Jets thing, son. You want to be in this business? You just got to be straight down the line, no Jet stuff. And I sort of heard what he said. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I sort of went for a walk. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw Steve Levy, with all due respect. I'm like, I'm just going to be a Jets guy, and I'm going to be very open about it because I'm passionate about it. I don't want to hide that. And people are either going to accept it or they're not. And for those who don't, oh, well, up yours. For the people that accept it, awesome. So I love that we now, even as we continue 2025, 2026, people could just be their full selves, and you could just embrace the fact that we're passionate football fans. So I love that part. I want to get that out there. So there you go. Arian Smith, by the way, a 4th round Georgia wide receiver. Love it. Okay, we'll see what else happens. Let's continue here on day 3. And this goes immediately to what I was saying earlier about the day 2 pick. The Jets traded up back into the 4th round to select Alabama defensive back Malachi Moore with the number 130th overall pick. This seemed to immediately crush any of the potential position change of this, that, or the other for one of the corners, because the Jets found their safety apparently in Malachi Moore. And I'll also add this before you give your grade here. Drew, Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn revealed as soon as we got to their final presser, they went, oh my God, we coveted this guy. We targeted this guy and we wanted him bad, basically. And I'm like, wow, okay. So that's a check that in the notes. So I bring that over to you, Drew. What do you see here in Malachi Moore?
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, is that confirmed from them that they fully see him as a full-time safety and they're never going to switch positions, or is that just speculation?
No, yeah, it's speculation.
So who is the guy that was the floated around a position change to safety guys?
So when we got Azarie Thomas, people said, oh, he's clearly a corner. So Brandon Stevens, the guy they gave $36 million to, would go to safety. Apparently, coming out of the draft, people said he was a safety, and for the first couple of years with Baltimore, he played safety, and then he's been a corner most recently. So people said, well, that big money guy's got to get on the field somehow. How is he going to get on the field? Because obviously they feel very high about this Florida State corner. Then when Malachi Moore got drafted, the only thing I will say that Aaron Glenn said about Malachi is he's going to get an opportunity basically to compete for the starting safety job. So that sort of indicated to me that that's where they lean. But also during it, Aaron Glenn shared that he spoke with Brian Branch, his Lions player, in the pre-draft process because they played this star-like position where they're sort of playing a lot of different things, nickel, all the safety positions, things of that nature. So it sounds like it's going to be his run at safety, but I think there will be obviously versatility there to use him in a variety of ways.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because the reason I brought that up is just because I think you see him drafted as a safety, but I wouldn't say that 100% confirms that he will play that true safety role, and that I think there's still a chance Brandon Stevens fills that role. I had Malachi Moore graded like solely as a nickel corner. That was the only thing I had him graded as. Okay. Because you mentioned that star position in Alabama, that's been a big thing throughout the whole Saban defense era, is that how important that star position is. And they basically do. They're an apex defender. They're playing slot corner. That the star position is technically listed as safety, but all their roles are the same as a slot corner. Now, I do think Malachi Moore has some safety experience. He's got the flexibility there. So I think there's still – I'm not saying he won't play safety. There's a very good chance he will. Again, I'm not intimately familiar with Aaron Glenn's scheme. There's a very good chance that Malachi Moore will play deep safety. The reason that gives me hesitation and the reason I had him graded only as a nickel corner is because I think there are some athletic limitations with Malachi Moore. He's not the rangiest guy in the world, not just the twitchiest athlete, just kind of a very average athlete. So you can play him deep, but you're going to need him in a pretty specific role because he's not a guy that can cover 70% of the field. He's just not that kind of athlete. But he's so smart, such an instinctive player. He understands the game at such a deep level, very, very cerebral. I'm not surprised the Jets were in love with him. I'm sure they got him in the interview room at some point during this draft process, and he just knocked their socks off on the whiteboard. Because you can tell on tape, like he understands everything that's happening as soon as it's happening. Just a very, very smart player, very disciplined in coverage. He's never fading away from his assignment. His eyes are incredibly disciplined. He's got a quick trigger. He's got good instincts. He's not afraid to come down and support in the run game, which is a very, very useful thing from that star position and going to be in the slot if he does play that at the NFL. Even though he's not the biggest guy in the world, he can still come down there and contribute in run defense. So I do. That's the only hold up for me. This is about the range I had him in. I think so. I'm going to give it a B, just because I think this is about the correct value for where you should take him. I'm a big athleticism guy. Like that's always going to knock guys down if they're not the best athletes for me. That's just my personal philosophy as a draft analyst. I know people are on the complete other side of that. I'm sure they have Malachi Moore a lot higher than I do because he's great at everything else. Just like I said, a very, very smart player. Coaches are going to love. He's a coach's best friend. Coaches are going to love him. Also, being born and raised in Alabama fan, I'm a little bit more familiar with him as well. Incredibly feisty, competitive locker room presence as well. He's a huge, very vocal leader in the locker room. So you got that as well. I'm sure that helped attract them to the Jets as well. So yeah, I think he probably works better as a nickel corner, but I think he's got a world where he can succeed in a sort of adjusted safety role where you're not asking him to cover as much ground just because he's not the twitchiest top end athlete, but a very, very smart player, very disciplined, just a very cerebral guy.
All right, that's good to know all that. Yeah, and a lot of these guys, as we'll go through on day 3, a lot of former team captains here that the New York Jets were swimming in those waters. That seems to be a type that certainly they were trying to add to the mix. All right, let's go to our next one here at number 162 overall in the 5th round. The New York Jets selected Miami linebacker Francisco Mauigoa, a.k.a. Kiko. What did you think about this guy?
Yeah, so he's a fun one. They're day 3. I love the Jets days 1 and 2. The day 3 is where I got hung up a little bit because I think these guys they ended up reaching I like the Malachi Moore pick. The other picks were just slight reaches to me. Yeah. But they're drafting this guy for a specific role. Like he's going to come in and be a big body rotational run defense linebacker. Not a guy that was in a ton of coverage roles at Miami, but an incredibly physical presence and run support. He's going to be able to continue to do that at the NFL. I'm just kind of very low in this linebacker class as a whole. There weren't many guys that I liked from this linebacker class. So again, take this with a grain of salt. I'll still give it a B- because they're drafting this guy. He was talked about as like a late 5th to early 6th guy. About where they took him. The athletic limitations are a little bit of a hang up for me. But again, a very, very smart. They have a type, clearly. It's a guy that's very similar to Malachi Moore at the linebacker position, where he's not the most athletic, twitchy guy in the world, but a very, very instinctive, good, quick trigger run defender. Big body, a lot of stopping power. When he hits a guy, you see him just you're not going to get any extra yards. As soon as he hits him, he's going to knock him back. So he's going to be brought in. He's not going to be a 3-down linebacker. He's going to be brought in to play a specific role. And I think he's going to do well at that role at the NFL level. Not a guy that's going to be asked to play a full inside linebacker 1 role where you're on the field all 3 downs. But he's going to be very, very good as an early down run defender, I think.
Which will be great.
A B-.
B-. Okay. Again, the Jets, both, you could say that for both corner and I guess linebacker were kind of like secondary needs. And I don't mean secondary like secondary. I just mean a lower on the totem pole needs for future years where off-ball linebacker or corner could come into play here. And then their final pick, they traded up. Again, number 176 overall for Miami edge Tyler Barron. They traded back into the 5th round, and that ended up being their final pick in the 2025 NFL draft. A kid who was originally at Tennessee and then ended up at Miami for his final season. What do you make of this guy?
Yeah, Tyler Barron is another one I'm going to be a little bit tougher on because of the lack of athleticism again. And I think you can get away with that at safety and at linebacker because there's roles for those guys that aren't the twitchiest athletes in the world and are just good instinctive players. At edge, it's a lot harder because I think edge is probably the one position in football where athleticism is the most important thing. It's one of the only things that matters. You have to be a top end athlete to find success at an NFL level at edge, and I don't think Tyler Barron is that. I shouldn't say you have to be a top end athlete. I just that's the most important aspect to an edge rusher, in my opinion. Like there's guys like JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State who got drafted this year. Who's not about the same level of athlete Tyler Barron is, but he's such a technically advanced player that he's still going to find a level of success at the NFL. Tyler Barron, I think my one worry with him is with him not being the most advanced athlete in the world, I don't know that he has a single way to win that's going to translate to the NFL level. Like he had a couple of moves that worked at the college level that were good enough to beat college tackles, but there's nothing. He never had like one dominant move, which you got to have at least one like solid way to win against NFL tackles to have success as a pass rusher. And I don't think he's not a guy that's going to be able to come in as like a purely like setting the edge, rotational run defender on the edge. That wasn't really his strong suit in college. So I think if you can get him in there and coach him up to really work on the hand usage a little bit and get him to be more of a finesse rusher that doesn't have to rely quite as much on his athleticism and get him like a single way to win as a pure like rotational pass rush guy, there's a path to success there. But I don't, the hands compounded with the lack of athleticism, I don't know that he has like a true way to win, like a consistent path to success as a pass rusher in the league. So that hangs me up a little bit with him. And there's some people that were really high on Tyler Barron. I'm one of the ones that was a little bit lower on him. So you're really, again, banking on this coaching staff to be able to come in there and coach him up, work on the hand usage a little bit, and just get him a go-to move to win at the NFL level. But I didn't really see that on the college tape. So I'm going to give that one a C+. I'm a little bit lower on Tyler Barron. But that's kind of my 2 cents on him as a player.
All right, so that is the overall class for the New York Jets, okay? They ended up finishing up with 7 players. They had 8 picks entering the draft. They got aggressive twice with 2 trades. One was just swapping around, and then one was actually giving up additional picks. So, again, Armand Membu in the first round, offensive tackle. Mason Taylor, tight end in the second round. Got some corner help in Azarie Thomas at corner. Got a wide receiver in the 4th round with Arian Smith, a defensive back, depending on where he's going to play, Malachi Moore, a linebacker in Francisco Mauigoa, and then finally an edge rusher in Tyler Barron. So that brings us to this, Drew. What is your overall grade for the 2025 NFL draft for the New York Jets?
So I'm bouncing between like a flat B or a B+, because I think they hit on their most important picks. The most important picks in the draft, I think they did a great job addressing those positions, but to be a continuously successful franchise, you got to find some hits on day 3, and I didn't love their day 3. So I'm bouncing back and forth. It depends on which picks you like, how much you value each one. I'll go a flat B because I think you got to find some gems on day 3, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the guys they went for on day 3. But again, a flat B is still better than most of the grades I give these franchises. So hitting on the first 3 picks, which are the most important, I think they knocked those out of the park. So
all right, there you go from our draft professor, playing professor for the New York Jets draft coming in here. Now, we'll open up the phone lines in a minute. We have 500 people in the room. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. We appreciate all the support every day as this show is streaming. Got a couple of questions for you here. First off, one of the most surprising things from this draft is that the Jets didn't take a single defensive tackle. In some mock drafts, I had them double dipping, taking 2. They didn't take 1. And here it is. This is from Mitch Samini. He had this in his column this morning. A total of 30 defensive tackles were drafted during the 2025 NFL draft. And the Jets didn't, again, select a single one in what some people are calling the richest defensive tackle draft in like 20 years. Was that a major mistake by the Jets?
I don't want to say major mistake because, again, I think that each team's board is different. They clearly had convictions against, like, I assume they had meetings with kids because they went and all got very cerebral players. That, like I mentioned, that was a theme on day 3, I think. So they want guys that are going to be able to come in there and work the scheme day 1 and be high floor rookies. So if that was the theme they were going for, I understand what they were trying to do. I do think for a team that has a need, I think teams that didn't have a need at defensive line should have been drafting defensive linemen in this class because, again, I fully agree. This is certainly the best I've ever graded. I haven't been around that long, so I don't know how much that means. But it's a historically good interior defensive line class. So I certainly would have come away with 1. I could have found some really good value on day 3, like early day 3 especially. Some guys that even with the insane amount that went on the first 2 days, there were some guys that I had graded a lot higher that fell to day 3. So I probably would have tried to come away with 1. But again, we're going to look back on this, and I think they had a type, and we're going to see if that type works. And you got to pick one. You got to stick to your guns as a front office, especially in the first year. So if they had a type they went into this draft wanting to get, I can respect them sticking to that, and I think the fan base should take some solace in that as well. And before we get a couple of questions further, I did have a list of some UDFA signings they did that I really, really liked. I think the Jets came away with some fun free agents. They came in with 3 that I had pretty high draftable grades on. So
lay them on us. Sure. Yeah, please.
Out of these, we'll start with, I think, probably the one I'm lowest on, and that's Donovan Edwards out of Michigan, the running back. So I'm sure this is an exciting one because a lot of people loved him coming. He was talked about as one of the best guys in the country coming into the year, and then he got his lunch money taken by the backup running back in Michigan, Kalel Mullings, who got drafted by my Tennessee Titans. Donovan Edwards, I think, is a guy that lost a lot of his twitch this year. There were a couple of running backs like that in this class where they looked like a really twitchy top-end athlete at the running back position last year. They come in and they looked a lot slower this year. Whatever the reason may be, I just thought he was a little bit less twitchy. I don't think his eyes are the best in the world. Not a very physical running back. Contact balance isn't where you want it to be. But this guy has a really, really fun role, just a pure third down receiving back. Now, I know Breece Hall is kind of covering that right now, but his future is questionable. I don't think Donovan Edwards is a very good pass protector, which is that worries me about him getting on the field on third down. But that's probably that and ball security are the 2 most coachable things in a running back. If the running back is willing to throw his body at somebody in pass protection, you can coach him up to be a great pass protector. That's the easiest thing in the world to teach a running back. We've seen that year after year after year with NFL coaches. So if Breece Hall, if this is his last year as a Jet or whenever that contract year is, if you don't see him sign a second contract, which I think most everybody is privy to the fact that he's not going to, when he's gone, I think Donovan Edwards, if he's still on the roster by that point, can absolutely step into that receiving role on third down because he has a very robust receiving skill set. He's a twitchy route runner, an advanced route runner. I think his hands are good. So I think he has a role carved out there. I had a 6th-round grade on him. So any draftable grade at UDFAs was always great value. So I do really like that signing for them.
Yeah, let me just give a quick follow-up on the Donovan Edwards. I'll bring up an Aaron Glenn quote in a second, but the thing I loved about Donovan Edwards, I guess that would be 3 years ago now if I'm doing the math correctly, where he had the 7 yards per carry. What was that in 2022? That looked really intriguing. Yeah. He looked, right. And going over there, and you're like, ooh, baby, what's this going to be? And the other thing, and then the reason why I bring that up is AG, he was talking about a different player earlier this offseason when he said it, but he said, if I've seen tape of a player in the past where I saw it, I know that with my coaching, confident guy, that we could get it back out of them again. And so when, like Donovan Edwards, my final mock draft last week ahead of the draft, I had Donovan Edwards as my Mr. Irrelevant pick for the New York Jets. I said, ooh, this would be a nice one late, just because of what we've seen previously. Recently, but previously, we saw it. So that's just a thing that sort of revs my engine about the possibility,
I think we talked about that on our Boomer Bust thing episode. One of the recent episodes we did were like, when you see when you grade tape, do you grade on the best tape you've seen? Because as a coach, it's your job to get that best tape out of them.
Yes.
So I like that mentality from Aaron Glenn. You're seeing great flashes from Aaron Glenn in what great head coaches do. And to get to this next pick, this is one of my favorite UDFA things. Period. Like this is one of the highest graded players I had that didn't get drafted. That's Dean Clark, the safety out of Fresno State. I think if you're looking for a guy to take over, that I'd be surprised if he didn't make the roster, to be honest with you. Dean Clark, he's a rangy, more like typical free safety guy, very disciplined in coverage. I really liked him. I thought he was a day 3 target for my Tennessee Titans who needed a safety. He was a guy that was on my radar for them. I really liked his tape. And I think I had like a late 5th-round grade on him. So getting him as UDFA, one of my favorite signings, period, of the whole UDFA class. I'm a huge Dean Clark fan. So I love that signing for the Jets. If you see Malachi Moore as that nickel corner, I think he plays a lot more of that traditional safety role that the Jets could potentially look to fill in the future. So I'm a huge fan of that Dean Clark signing.
Okay, and then I thought you were going to talk about a different Clark. Ryan Clark, ESPN analyst's son, Jordan Clark, out of Notre Dame. Does he do anything for you?
Now, I didn't watch or grade him, so I can't speak to that
fair
one.
Enough.
But, again, UDFAs are a volume game. You're just going for as many guys as you can. You just cast a wide net. Some of these guys are going to take the roster. I didn't have that many draftable grades that fell into the UDFA class, but Dean Clark was one of my 3 highest, I think. So big fan of that signing. Nice. And my last of my list of UDFAs is Aaron Smith out of South Carolina State, the linebacker. I was a big fan of him. Now, again, South Carolina State tape is not the easiest to come by. I didn't have that many games on this guy. I only got to watch 1 or 2. But I was really, really impressed with him. I think I had an early 6th-round grade on him. very good athlete. I think he's a well-rounded linebacker. He's a 3-down guy for them. And I think he has the athleticism and the potential to really develop into a rotational linebacker at the NFL level. I love his skill set. I think it translates really, really well. So again, that was one of my favorite signings of this whole UDFA class. I was a big fan of him.
All right, last one I want to bring up just because, well, two things. First off, one of the other decisions the Jets chose not to make is to draft a quarterback. And then when Darren Muji spoke after when he spoke after the Jets draft, the real draft was still going on. So obviously he didn't know what was going on. He said, well, we didn't take a quarterback, but as soon as undrafted free agency starts, who knows what could happen? And they immediately go after Brady Cook out of Missouri to reunite him with Armand Membu. Very beautiful. So where are you at on Brady Cook? Because obviously he could have a chance, potentially, depending on how you feel about him, to be that QB3 battling with Jordan Travis, I would imagine.
So, funnily enough, I've been adamant the whole time about how much I hated watching this quarterback class. It was not a fun class to grade past Cam Ward. Watched a lot of Brady Cook because you were watching Armand Membo and you were watching Luther Burden and all that Missouri offense. You saw him a lot. Very frustrating quarterback to watch. But if you had to ask me, like a group of quarterbacks that I thought actually had potential to be like borderline journeyman starters and a top end backup, I think Brady Cook would be on that list. Because now the accuracy issues are abysmal. This guy could not hit the ocean from the beach with a football, but it's bad. One of the least accurate quarterbacks I've ever watched, but he has he's one of the only quarterbacks in the class that has the physical tools. This guy is you saw him at the combine. He tested out of this world. He's a top end athlete at the quarterback position. And he's one of the only guys in this class with true actual NFL level arm talent. Like this guy gets zip on the ball. Like he can drive that thing. So like if you're going to go after a guy in UDFA, this is probably my favorite UDFA quarterback. I would have drafted this guy before I would have drafted this guy before Dylan Gabriel, who went in the top 100. Because I think Dylan Gabriel, I stood next to Dylan Gabriel. I'm not that biggest guy in the world. I stood next to Dylan Gabriel at Senior Bowl. I dwarfed that guy. Like he's tiny. There's no way. Like you have to have physical tools at the quarterback position at some level to succeed in the NFL. That the fact that he went in the top 100, I'll go off on a tangent about that, was baffling. But Brady Cook, like he has all of the physical tools. If you can teach this guy, we talked about Josh Allen earlier. If you can teach this guy, if you can completely revamp his mechanics and get him to be even the slightest bit accurate, he's got the arm talent. He's got the athleticism. I don't think the mental side of it was that bad. He wasn't like the smartest quarterback in the world. You were a ton of like pre-snap diagnosis. He wasn't working through progressions like he should, but there were flashes. I mean, like all the tools are there for this guy to work with it. If you could fix the accuracy, this is a guy that has like borderline starting level potential at the quarterback position. So he's a fun one to talk about.
All right, beautiful. So there you go on the undrafted free agents. Good. I wanted to get to those eventually, so I'm glad that you were aggressive to get that in there. Phenomenal. Terrific. So there you go. There's the draft grades. There's some looks at UDFAs. If you guys have questions for Drew, super chat those in. You can also send in your memberships. I'm about to catch up on all that now. Plus, we'll open up the phone lines to wrap up the show as well. Let's go to J-Boy here, who gifted a Boy Green Coffee Club membership. Thank you very much. Went to Jetwing 67. So, J-Boy, you're still leading the pack on our last remaining contest for this month. So we'll get more into that later for sure. We do have a super chat question coming in, and every time we get a super chat question, we hear from my daughter Zariah Luna. Wow. So there's a lot of people from the outside that would say, yeah, geez, why did the Jets do this? Why did the Jets do that? Well, the natural follow-up question is what Ace of Spades says here. So who does Drew think the Jets should have drafted on day 3?
Well, this is a tougher one because honestly, I have to look at who was available at each of their picks, which is kind of the harder.
No. So I've got the draft results up here. So I'll go to day 3 because, like, for instance, a big point of contention was Arian Smith. What was a position that you think the Jets should have gone with? And I could give you some names that went in that range.
So I don't just like going receiver there. I like that, but I think there were probably a lot of receivers that were on the board at that point. Let's talk. We talked about defensive tackles. Let's talk about receivers and defensive tackles that were available at that pick 110. I think that's a fun thing to talk about at the very top of day 3 because I thought there was a lot of talent that fell out of day 2.
Yeah, so I will mention players that were taken after the Jets took Arian Smith, which means they could have went in a different direction. Defensive tackles that went off the board: Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, C.J. West out of Indiana. He went off as a defensive tackle. Let me get some other guys from the list. Jalen Lane, the wide receiver, he went. Jalen Royals, Utah State, the wide receiver, he went. I always butcher his name. Elick Manor, the Stanford wide receiver. And then Jordan Watkins was the other receiver. And then lastly, Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle, he went. So those were the rest of the guys in the fourth round.
Yeah, I forgot Joshua Farmer went after that. That's tough. Joshua Farmer was 70th on my board, so I really liked him.
Okay.
So Farmer would have been an outstanding. He would have gotten an A again if you took him right there. That would have been an outstanding pick. I think CJ West is another guy I had a day 2 grade on that they could have gone right there, and I would have really been a fan of that. CJ West is much more of the already NFL level talent. He could come in and been a day 1 contributor in the run game and have some floor as a pass rusher as well. He could have been a 3-down guy. Joshua Farmer is more of the projection upside guy where he's got all of the physical tools in the world to be a dominant pass rusher in the interior. Just very, very raw. The tape was not very good at Florida State. There were flashes, but they were few and far between. But he's got 35-inch arms. He's an incredible athlete at 305, 310 pounds, whatever he played at. Very, very twitchy. So both of those would have been outstanding picks. As far as receivers go, Jalen Lane, I understand what they were going for with Arian Smith, but I think Jalen Lane is the version of Arian Smith that knows how to play receiver. Because maybe not quite the top end speed that Arian Smith has. Like I said, he's the fastest player I've ever graded. But Jalen Lane is one of the most explosive receivers in this draft class. He's a top end athlete as well. Also has catastrophic drop issues, but he's a way better. He's a much more nuanced separator. He understands he knows how to play the position. You just have to coach up the hands, but he's a much more developed separator. So I think if you wanted an explosive field stretcher to be at a top end twitchy athlete, I think Jalen Lane probably been in the range I would have gone in. Royals is another guy. He slipped because the medicals are worse than people think, so I won't talk too much on that. I know people had him early on, but the medicals are worse than people thought right there. That's why he slipped. Supposedly that's why Iomanner fell as well. He was supposed to have bad medical issues. He was 50th on my board, and he went at 136. Wow. So that was one of the biggest drops on my board. I loved Iomanner. Apparently there's some medicals there. I haven't been able to find anything on that, so I don't know what the deal is there. But supposedly there's medical red flags. But yeah, Farmer, West, any of those receivers we mentioned, I think probably all would have been much better grades from me than Arian Smith at 110. But again, they're taking a bet on the pure upside with Arian Smith. So.
Okay, interesting. And just to finish off sort of this thought of this question, I'm going to go to the 5th round, which again is where the Jets' final picks were. So people after Kiko got drafted at 162 overall. I see my boy Arondé Gadsden here, the Syracuse tight end, went a few picks later to the Chargers. Torrey Horton is a receiver I liked at Colorado State that went a few picks after that too. I can't believe how far he fell. Your boss, Jim Wickens, was a big Chris Paul Jr., a.k.a. Pooh fan, the Ole Miss linebacker. Yeah, Jackson Hawes, who's the big blocking tight end from this class out of Georgia Tech, went to the Buffalo Bills. So those were some of them. Some of the names. I don't know if any of those rev your engine or not. But yeah,
Torrey Horton, I still don't understand why he fell. Because from everything that I knew, his medicals were clean. You had that knee injury that ended his season, but from what I know, he's back 100% by now. He was top 75 on my board, and he fell into the 150s. So that was shocking to me. Chris Paul was another guy I had in my top 100. I liked him a lot. Supposedly there's some medical stuff there. That's why he fell too. Most of these guys, when you see a shocking, drastic slip this bad, there's a really bad character thing or there's a really bad injury thing that nobody knew about. So I think medicals are the thing with Chris Paul, but again, the talent level is so much right there. I would have just taken that bet over a guy like Kiko. But again, I understand where they're coming from. I love Jackson Hawes. It wouldn't make sense after Mason Taylor, but I do love him as a player. See, it's easy to sit back here in hindsight and just say, oh, they should have picked this guy, but they clearly had a plan. Again, I can respect they went into the draft with a plan and they stuck to it. So I can respect that at a certain level.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you for that question, Ace of Spade. Continue to send in those super chats here on the show. We appreciate it. All right, let's go to the next one here. Who doesn't like a good kicker super chat question coming in? So God bless America. Wow. Thank you to Blade Runner here. Any info on the UDFA kicker we got? Thanks. Here is the info I can provide, and then, Drew, you could jump in wherever you'd like here as well. The Jets signed Caden Davis. He spent his first 3 years of college at Texas A&M and then his final 2 years at Ole Miss. When you put everything together career-wise, he had a 98.2% conversion rate on extra points. Okay, you love to see that. Now, his overall field goal percentage was 76.8%, which is not great, but that's factoring in some spot time there with Texas A&M in 2022. If you just base it off the last 2 years, his most recent stuff, which was at Ole Miss, he was an 80% field goal conversion rate guy. So you got to love some of that data. He was a semifinalist for the Lou Groza Award. He was a guy that could have been drafted, according to experts. So he was a semifinalist again for the Lou Groza Award, which is given annually to the nation's best kicker. He also had a 57-yarder this year, which is very nice, 24-29 this past season. So, some good stuff. And obviously, Greg Zuerlein was awful last year for the New York Jets. So I understand why Blade Runner would be even more interested in what the hell are the potential replacement options. What more can you add, Drew?
Yeah, so normally I'm a very anti-production, anti-data guy when it comes to scouting. Because I think tape tells the full story. On kickers, I don't really know what there is past the data. You kind of just go off the stat sheet. Whatever the field goal percentage is, that's how good they are. With kickers, there's not a whole lot of nuance there. There's nothing that really impacts kickers. There's no context because I think stats often lack a ton of context. That's why I hate using them for scouting. I think production stats can be misleading a lot of times. Kickers, it just kind of comes down to how good you are. So the stats I think tell the full story on kickers. There's not really a whole lot the film can add in that the stats can't. So, take a UDFA shot on one, see if he develops into something. Not a whole lot I can give you from the film side of things. So the field goal percentage is good. It's something to feel good about.
Love it. I love the honesty. And shout out to Hep. Hep, one of our person who may be calling in here shortly, who was like, hey, draft a kicker. So, they got a kicker. So there you go. From that,
I am kind of in the camp that says never draft kickers. I think spending draft picks on positional guys when you see a lot of them come from success of just undrafted guys, just play the volume game in undrafted stuff. Don't spend valuable resources on kickers and punters. Go after the guys that fall out of the draft and undrafted free agency. And just play the volume game. So that's another good process that I agree with from the Jets regime this year.
Yeah. Also, I see that we're getting this question in from For Lily and Big D. What are the deeper level numbers from how accurate he was from different ranges? I'll see if ESPN provides a better option here from that perspective on seeing it. Because yes, here we go. I could give you guys those numbers now. So shout out. Let me see if I can pull up that question real quick. From For Lily. There we go. And thank you for the kicker questions, guys. BG, what was his percentage on 40-plus kicks? Shout out to ESPN for having this data available. From 40 to 49, he was 8 of 9. So he was really sweet in that area. On 50-plus yard kicks, he was 2 of 4. Again, his career long this season was a 57-yarder that he made. 30 to 39 range, he was 8 of 10. He was money from 29 and less, being 6 for 6 from that perspective. Again, overall 24 of 29. In the 2023 season, he was 18 of 23, was perfect. Anything inside 29 yards, was 7 for 7, was 4 or 5 and 30 to 39 yards, 40 to 49, 5 of 7. And then same thing as he was the previous year, 2 of 4 on his 50-plus yard kicks. He made a 56-yarder in 2023. So he certainly seemed to have the bootleg there, which is quite nice. And again, Drew, what'd you think about that? We'd be breaking down kicker ranges here on the draft.
We're always here for it.
Hey, that's it, baby. So appreciate it. Thank you guys for all the kicker questions coming in. Very nice. J Boy's like, what is his percentage in the Northeast in the rain and in December? I will get back to you on those answers, J Boy, for that. But thank you very much. So I do love it because I thought there was a lot of work in the undrafted free agency. So we'll see that. Before we get to the phone lines, this is just one. I have no idea if you could comment on it. It has nothing to do with the Jets, although I wanted him. I wanted him. I understand why Aaron Glenn chose not to. Shadur Sanders, was it what the hell happened there?
So that fall clearly went past the talent level. As soon as you saw Dylan Gabriel go before Shadur Sanders, we knew Tyler Shuck and Jalen Milroe both going before he did. I knew that was a real possibility going into the draft. There were a lot of teams that had the quarterbacks in every different order imaginable. Sure. So that made sense. But as soon as you saw Dylan Gabriel go before, it was very clearly something beyond the tape. To my knowledge, the things making him fall were NFL teams that have coaches that are more on the hot seat. Were scared if they drafted Shadur Sanders that the team was going to try and get Deion Sanders in there to be the new head coach, that they were going to be signing their own pink slip if they drafted Shadur Sanders, basically. Sure. Which is wild to me. He just signed an extension at Colorado. That's very clearly not a thing. I think they were also they were very scared of the whole circus that comes with Shadur Sanders coming into their locker room. They don't want their backup or third string quarterback having all the social media attention, all the cameras on him, and all the paparazzi that comes with Shadur Sanders. The whole circus. They don't want all that drama in their locker room. So I think a lot of it just all boiled down to the whole Sanders family and their image. just making him fall. Still, I hate it for Shedeur Sanders. Some of it is self-inflicted for sure, but it got to a point where it was just kind of like exaggerated, and I felt a little bit bad. But again, I'm as low as you can get on Shedeur Sanders. I hated the tape. He was a day 3 grade for me, but even I didn't have him that late. So I think at a certain level, especially with how QB desperate the league is, at a certain level, it went beyond, the actual football stuff, and it was just teams were so scared of his personality.
This is a Jet show, but one more. The Browns, their quarterback room is Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, who they traded for, Dylan Gabriel, who you hated and was a top 100 pick, and then, just kidding, Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson's in that room. What the hell is going to go on there? What is this going to be? Is it like, obviously the Browns must think that, hey, this quarterback room is whatever you think it is, but then we start getting to quarterback injuries in camp, and people are going to be calling us for a trade. That's what I have to imagine is the conversation. I would doubt they're keeping the 4 quarterbacks on the roster. It doesn't sound like Watson plays there, so he's IR, so he won't count against the roster. But the other 4, I imagine they have to think that they could probably trade one of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's I don't know what the thought process is there. I guess that's what it is, but like that, you just get it's a volume game. Get as many quarterbacks in there as you can. One of them's got to be good. Sure, but you're drafting these guys like in Dylan Gabriel's case in the top 100 and spending a top 150 pick on him in Shedeur Sanders' case, and you're going to be flipping these guys for 6th or 7th round picks after camp because like teams know you can't have all these guys on the roster. You're buying high and selling low. So if that is the thought process, I'm even more concerned for Cleveland than I was in the first place. Like for a team that that traded away Travis Hunter for more draft picks, and they still missed on all of them. I hated their draft class. It was a disaster. In my opinion, I hate to be that drastic about things, but like, what are we doing there in Cleveland? I don't know what the end goal is in that quarterback room. I mean, that is a complete circus. We'll see who comes out on top, but Cleveland's going to be, fun. They're not going to be good, but they're going to be fun at the very least.
Taylor Sterling, you're right. Can we get
Please,
Cleveland Browns
yes.
on Hard Knocks? I mean, we've had them on a few times in yesteryear, but boy, I'm ready for them to be back. That sounds juicy. Can't wait. That'll be absolutely hilarious. All right, without further ado, we'll open up the phone lines just for a little bit here on the program before signing off here with Drew. So phone lines open next right here on youtube.com/BoyGreen25.
Boy Green, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Talking Jets football, man. Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. New York Jets Football Club. Offense, defense, special teams. Watch Jets football with Boy Green. J-E-T-S. Jets. Let's go.
After months of speculation, the draft is in the books. It just got graded, kissing some babies, signing some autographs. Drew's about to go to the Bahamas after his wonderful, draft cover. And then again, Drew's going on to the next draft class, and we're going on to the schedule being released in like 2.5 weeks. I mean, the NFL monster continues to churn. There's no question about it. All right, let's go to the phone lines. That is the pinned comment on youtube.com/BoyGreen25. You like your participation trophy for the day? Feel free to exercise it. We got 600 people in the room. Like the video, hit subscribe. Let's go. Hep joins us here on the program. What's up,
Hey,
Hep?
Paul. Hey, Drew. How you doing? We forget we had our own circus here a little while back, even before Rogers. Do you remember his name was Tim Tebow?
Ah, yes, sure. 10
we
years
had
ago. Yeah, very nice.
We don't need it. We got to learn our lessons. Now, the other thing I heard about the Tyler Warren prank phone call, I think the NFL is investigating a one Bobby Midnight.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see that. I did hear about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Drew, I'm curious. I think we have an undrafted wide receiver that came in. I think he's 6'4". Is that true, Paul?
Yes,
Yeah.
Jamal Pritchett out of South Alabama.
There you go.
He's another guy. I had a priority free agent grade on him, so like not a draftable grade, but about that's where they went and got him. Like you mentioned, big frame guy that was down there at the Senior Bowl. I just don't know that he's an NFL level athlete to be successful at that level. He's got the frame. Could be a guy that ends up with a great camp, could shake out making the roster and just being at the bottom of that receiver room.
You think
but
maybe
I don't know that I find that.
like a gunner or something like that on special teams?
Yeah, he can absolutely be a guy that carves out a role on special teams, 100%. That's where a lot of these undrafted free agents are going to find their success. These are guys that are going to come in and be contributors on special teams first, and then they start carving out roles, bigger roles in the offense and the defense. But like you said, he's got the frame. Not the twitchiest guy in the world. I didn't love the tape, but again, where they got him at, I think that's a guy that come in there and take a flyer on him for sure.
And
All
quick
right.
follow up on Hep's thing here is there's another wide receiver, Quentin Skinner, wide receiver, Kansas. Did you do any study on him?
I did not. He wasn't even on my watch list,
Okay.
so I can't,
Okay.
can't speak to that guy,
There you go.
unfortunately.
All right,
I'm
thanks,
out.
Hep. Appreciate it, pal. No, so everyone's always looking at the wide receivers. So there you go. Very nice. Appreciate it. Good question there from Hep. All right, let's go to next year on the show. Johnny Boy here on the program. Johnny?
Hey, morning, BG. What's going on, Drew? Are you guys holding
So,
up?
First and foremost, holler.
Hey, you know it, man. Hey, so the draft, right? I wanted to ask you a couple of things. So the Mason Taylor pick, there's a lot of I thought it was a slam dunk with the Membu pick. I mean, it was a position of need. I know it wasn't the sexy one because everybody wanted, Tyler Warren, BG, right? But anyways, so the Mason Taylor pick. Didn't a lot of people have him getting drafted in the first round? Essentially, right? So he did have first round talent or whatever to get picked up there and there. So to say that he's a reach at that time frame, is that a for real thing? Or because like Jets Twitter was going nuts. Half of the people were like, oh, this is awesome. Half of the people are like, this was a huge reach in regards to that. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the Mason Taylor one. And then the Arian Smith one. I'm a big Georgia guy, so I saw him constantly play. I love the dude, right? I thought it was great of a pickup because the speed is nuts. You can't teach that. I just remember like one game that comes up to me top of my head is in the Ole Miss game. Dude was open constantly, but Beck just couldn't get him the ball. And then when Beck would get him the ball, there was balls that were behind him. But a speedster, right, you're supposed to hit him on stride. That was never happening. There was times when the dude was just on a go bowl and he was going and he had to come back 10 yards to get the ball because the ball would never reach the dude. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I mean, does that come to play with a lot of the drops that essentially I feel like it's Carson Beck?
I mean, to start first on the Mason Taylor thing, when I say he's a reach to me, that's just my personal opinion based off of my board. Like he was 95th on my board, so I wasn't quite as high on him. But in terms of NFL, like how the NFL viewed it and the general consensus board, like yeah, Daniel Jeremiah had him the back end of the first round on most of his final mocks coming into the draft. I'm surprised he fell as far as he did. The NFL viewed him as a borderline first round pick. So the value wise from the NFL's eyes was great. The NFL absolutely had him in that range. So that's how the league viewed him. I'm just personally a lot lower on him, so I see it as a reach. But that's what all draft evaluation is, just personal, educated opinions on these guys, educated guesses. So from the NFL point of view, it was not a reach at all. It was actually kind of a steal. But to me personally, it is a reach. And on the Arian Smith front, I don't think the quarterback play helped, but I think a lot of the drops too were self-inflicted. Like there were, like I said, the quarterback play was not good. But there were a lot of ones that he should have caught and just didn't because the hands are something that needs to be coached up. And yeah, you can't teach his speed. Like I said, he's the fastest player I've ever watched. I thought he was going to run a sub 4.2 at the combine. He's a speed demon. But you're going to have to teach him to play pretty much every other part of the receiver position.
And one of the things that he doesn't get that nobody really talked about a lot is he's actually a really good blocker. That dude is not.
He's a very willing blocker, which is rare for guys of his size. You see typically the really small, twitchy, fast receivers are guys that just kind of take plays off. He'll get after it on a run block. And I love the effort from him on the outside. He really will. Not the most physically dominant blocker because he's just not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got the effort. Like he wants it. So respect him for that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like I think it's the pick has a lot of upside on it, right? Because if I'm being honest with you and with everybody, hey, if we hit with our first two picks, right? First three picks, I think it's a slam dunk. If I'm being very, very honest, I don't think, and this is just my opinion. This is not nobody else's or anything, right? you can't grade a draft yet until at least 2 to 3 years, maybe, to see what the production has been in regards to that. If I had to give this a grade, just for myself, because I thought the need was a DT, and especially in a draft that was so deep with it, right? I hate giving grades, man. Like, I think it's because I was one of the dudes that was like, let's get a tight end way later on. Like we need a D. I thought we needed at least a DT, but maybe they see Nandi to be that answer that's we're not really talking about. I don't want to give it a grade. I don't know, but I thought it was good, man. Like, I'm excited about this, and a lot of the guys that we got are high characters as well, captains and stuff like that. So we'll see, man. This is their first one. Yeah, I appreciate you guys, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. Yes, for sure, Johnny. And I appreciate you, kind of dipping your toe in the water. I want to give a grade. Nah, I don't have to give a grade. See ya. Did drop out. Hey, you know what? Drew's putting himself on the front lines, for God's sakes. With all his draft professorship and grading, it is hard to grade. And as some people have said, you can't grade for 2 or 3 years. Tell that to this show, baby. NFL Draft Analyst grades the entire Jets draft class. Best picks, worst picks. We already did it. Suckers. Anywho.
And I hope in a couple of years you guys can all come back and call me an idiot. I hope this draft class is the best of all time. So
yeah. But in all seriousness, I think the Johnny Boy point that I agree with is that, like, some draft classes are these historic classes where every pick, like, I think of that Saints draft class. What was that, 2017? They had Ryan Ramczyk, Alvin Kamara. I mean, and it goes deeper than that. They had all kinds of starters all over the place. They're like, holy friggin' crap. Like, they just hit it at every pick that became these immediate impact guys. But really, it's about finding a couple of these guys and then finding some role players, because that's unfortunately where the Jets have sort of struggled. I love this question from NC Green. I want to float this in here in between all our calls, because the conversation for the Jets was, is it protection or playmaker in first or second, or inverse? So NC Green asks, he gives you a combo. Would you have rather had Armand Membu and Mason Taylor, which the Jets actually ended up with as their offensive line tight end, or Tyler Warren and Ariante Ursary, who both would have been available in these made-up scenarios? So what say you? Penn State tight end and the Minnesota tackle, or vice versa, Missouri tackle and the LSU tight end?
First of all, it's a great question. I love that question in a scenario like this. To me, it's Mimbo and Taylor, and it's not particularly close. I think that's kind of a landslide towards that, just because I think that the gap between Mimbo and some of the deeper tackles in this class is that big. And I'm not a big Ursary guy either. Honestly, I'm a little bit lower on him too. And like I said, I wasn't the biggest Warren guy either. So I think Mimbo, you're getting like the best player at that position, at a very, very valuable position. Top 10 player in the class, in my opinion. That he was, I think he was 7 on my board. So right where they took him. So yeah, to me, it's Mimbo and Taylor by a landslide. So,
by the way, if someone said, "Hey, Paul, what's your prediction of what Drew's going to answer on this question?" I would have made a lot of money, baby. I would have made a lot of money, because I thought that's where Drew is going to lean. But hey, that's what this is all about. Let's go through a couple more phone calls, and we'll wrap up the show. For Lily and Big D is with us. What's up, pal?
How you doing, BG? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear, brother.
All right. Yeah, I would have gone with Membo Taylor too on that.
Okay. Very good.
I have a question for Drew. Drew, you called me here earlier. Obviously, we didn't take a DT. Everybody's talking about that, and I was big on a defensive tackle. But you said something about the linebackers we chose could be more than appropriate for stopping the run. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? And do you think that we've done enough to stop the run? Because my biggest concern was somebody helping Q on the right side during this draft, which wasn't really addressed in my opinion, but just I would like your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Kiko and I think Aaron Smith, the UDFA, we talked about that. I was pretty high on too. I think they're both guys that can come in and contribute in the run game. I think that's probably, in Kiko's face, that's like that his role is going to be as a run stopper in the linebacker rotation. But there really is, you can't really like replace interior help with linebackers when it comes to run defense. That's still absolutely something they need to address, and something I would have addressed. I think you went and got some run stoppers in free agency. That's some guys that we talked about that leading up to the draft on the show, that they had added some run defense help on the interior in some free agency pickups. But I really did think you needed to go and get like a CJ West that we mentioned earlier to go and be like another like a Robin to Quinn Williams Batman. You needed like you needed to go and get one in this draft class. And while the linebackers, you're adding run defense at the second level, that's going to help. But you can't like it's not it's apples to oranges. You got to go and get an actual presence on the defensive line interior. You can't really like supplement that with linebackers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Thanks. That perfectly makes sense, and I agree with it. All right, thanks for your insight. We'll see what the draft looks like in a couple of years here. I guess is when we're going to grade it. So,
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you, man.
For Lily, thanks for the question. I would say two things here because they obviously ignored defensive tackle. So I think there are two things here. First off, schematically, Aaron Glenn, in all the places he's been, his defenses have been very successful in stopping the run. So perhaps based purely off of schematics, could that be something that changes? Even if the roster is exactly the same last year to this year, could that sort of change make a difference? We will see. Put that in a pocket. The next one is coaching, right? They signed all these guys, Jay Tufele, Byron Cower, Derek Noddy. To me, they're just random bodies for the most part. But can Aaron Glenn get more of them than I'm thinking? If I'm calling them random bodies, but they end up being better because he's coaching them and he's getting it more juice out of the orange, then maybe AG is right. So some of those things we won't be able to know. And the other big one that I keep pounding the table for is Leonard Taylor III. I see him making a seismic jump, and I feel really good about him. And the Jets must feel good about him too, based on the results of what we've seen so far. Again, a lot of people aren't going to believe that bullshit that I'm spewing on April 28th. They're going to want to see it in action this fall. But okay, that's just what I'm saying for the plan. We'll see if that plan is right ultimately at the end of the day. That's for sure. We have 600 plus people in the room. Like the video, hit subscribe, baby. Up next, we have Drew's arch rival, Ricky New York Live here on the show.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Let me address this right away. We've got an ass kicker for a coach who's going to get the most out of these guys. Not only the guys that were here last year, but the guys we brought in. And as far as ignoring the defensive tackle position, I think it's apparent that the coaches are willing to bet on, and I am willing to bet on, the guy that's been in the league for 6 years, been to 4 Super Bowls, and got 3 rings, Derek Noddy, from the Florida State. Absolutely. I said it before. He opened up Chris Jones for years and was a good running mate to him. He'll do the same thing for Quinnen. I think Aaron Glenn is willing to bet on him. I know that I am. And while we're talking about Florida State guys, or I am, I wanted a kicker too, damn it. My guy didn't go drafted. He was sitting there, and the damn Panthers ended up getting him, and it pisses me off. First game of the year last year, Georgia Tech. He starts off nailing a 52-yarder, then hits a 59-yarder as time expires to tie the game at halftime. Kicked a 62-yarder in his pro day. He did miss a 57-yarder at the Senior Bowl with everybody watching, so that wasn't good. But 100% on field goals and extra points last year, 100% over 50 yards. Ryan Fitzgerald should have been our guy. I'm really super pissed we didn't get him. That was like the one, when we got to like the last pick of the draft, I'm like, screw it, just take the kicker. And we didn't, but he was there, and I was so hopeful we would get him, but we didn't. However, I'm going to make one last point, and I'm going to get Drew's opinion on this. We needed a wide receiver too. In round 4, you're probably not getting a wide receiver too. However, I've made this comp other places as well, but Arian Smith, I think, has the potential to possibly develop into like Marquise Goodwin that played for the Bills and the 49ers. Super fast, former track star, didn't have a spectacular career, but had a long career as like a wide receiver 4 role player. Do you think with the right coaching, Arian can turn out to be that kind of guy, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great comp. I think they have very similar skill sets, very similar body types. And he's not far off from that already. If you can coach out the drop issues a little bit and just teach him a couple of the nuances of the receiver position. Like I said, I think he's got some of the most athleticism in this whole draft. So the very top end of the top end athletes. I like that. I think it's a great comp. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, at one point I was like, both former track stars. Is that a lazy analysis on my part? But they do seem really similar. And to Johnny's point, bad quarterback play certainly does not help. But man, like going back now and watching some of his games, like there's at least one in almost every game, and some of those are they're focus drops. Like I wish I could blame the quarterback on all of them. And like when I was doing Golden's tape, I was like, holy shit, his quarterback is off target and late a lot. But the quarterback play certainly doesn't help. But man, some of those were just, Lazard-like focus drops. And, hopefully we can coach that out of him. But dude, like a guy that's going to run like a 4.29 type speed, you send him down the field, he's going to clear shit out whether he's catching the ball or not. Like he's going to help us in some ways. But like it pissed me off like when people started making the Jameson Williams, comps right away, and I'm like, he's fast, but he ain't that. Jameson was considered a first round pick, aside from his injury. Like he ain't that. And so when I really started thinking about it, and then I don't know, maybe it was the track thing, but Goodwin came to mind. And so like that's the comp I've been trying to throw out there. But all right, guys, I would have liked a CJ West, I would have liked Royals over Smith, but you know what? It's said, it's done, it's in the books. And like I've been telling people, Barron is our replacement for Clements. Kiko is our replacement for Chaz Surratt. We're not looking for starters at the ass end of the draft. We got backups and role players. That's what you usually get at the end of the draft. So I'm okay with it. I'm not sweating it as much as other people. I got faith in where we're going.
There you go, Ricky. Thanks for the call, brother. And I love Jet fans. I'm getting tweeted at during this live show. Paul, here's some more info on that kicker, man. All right, well, here we go. More kicker info being sent my way. An article was sent to me. Apparently, his this guy, Caden Davis, was known as the quote-unquote clutch kicker. He's not your prototypical kicker. 6'3", 200 pounds of beef. His size gives him a strong leg. Guys, his senior year made 96.6% of his extra points and 82.8% of his field goal attempts. And he quoted a thing from my guy. I love this guy. And, hey, I loved everything he did for the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy, a good friend of mine. And he said, for all the kicker sickos out there, Caden Davis is the best kickoff guy in this year's draft by a wide margin. His kickoff hang times are in the 4.1 to 4.2 range, which is insane. NFL special teams coordinators want automatic touchbacks. Will love this guy. His 57-yard field goal earlier this year, an impressive 53-yarder today in sloppy conditions. He's our guy. Hashtag the draft starts in Mobile. This was Jim Nagy before he took the Oklahoma gig as their new GM, which again, salute to Jim Nagy and everything he did for Mobile. So there you go, you sickos, sending me more kicker reports in the middle of the boy. There we go. There we go. Let's get one more caller in before we sign off on this show here. Drew, Neil Sr., smoking a cigar as always. What's up, brother?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Hey, wonderful. Yes.
Another draft under the book. Another, this to quote Joe Beningo, this is the worst administration, the worst of everything that we've always had to endure for 56 years. I mean, look, the 1, 2, 3, I have no problem with the top of the draft, okay?
All right.
But
sure.
When you're in the 5th round, you still have Will Howard out there. You still have the kid from Syracuse.
Tom McCord, baby.
And how about Shedeur Sanders is still there? Let me tell you something. Beningo was talking on Friday how the Giants moved up in the 1st round after they got their guy in the 2nd and showed that that's a professional way to handle things, the way they went and got their quarterback for the future. Now, he said that we should have stuck with Rodgers and had somebody learn under him. We could have kept what we had. And, again, that's all water under the bridge, all right? But the reality is you got Shedeur Sanders, and instead you take some stupid linebacker, Mawuka, whoever the hell he is, and you got a chance to put a guy in your quarterback room that, might be your franchise quarterback. And, again, whether it be Howard, I would have been happy with either of those 3 guys, particularly Sanders, because, again, now that Sanders got and the team that ends up taking him already took a quarterback in the draft. So, you want to tell me we didn't have room in our quarterback room for a guy like him when we have Tyrod Taylor, who's going to be leaving us, who's old and nobody's interested in seeing going on the field. God forbid something happens with Fields, right? I mean, we don't want to see him on the field. And if he is on the field, he's going to last 3 or 4 games. And then what? Adrian Martinez? Or you want the kid from Florida State? We don't even know if he's going to be on the team. We don't know anything about this kid. And we have a freebie, and you can pay Shedeur Sanders $4 million as a 5th-round pick. If he stinks, you get rid of him. No sweat. Right?
Sure.
I mean, that to me shows that ignorance of this coaching, of this organization is just piss poor over and over and over and over. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm the eternal optimist. Nobody could be as stupid as me to be doing this for 57 years. I'm way up there with Joe and Ira and all the other guys. I've been on this team for that long, and I am called the eternal optimal Jet fan. But I got to tell you something, man. They're just, opening up old whip wounds on my back. I have all these wounds on my back that healed, and now they're restarting it again. I feel like I'm just sitting on a table. Take that, you stupid. We're not going to take a quarterback. We'll take a quarterback next year. Come on, guys. Everybody's talking, Ricky, about this guy. It's that guy. We could have got this guy. Look, 4th, 5th round, we're taking shots. We're not going to get anybody there that's going to do anything major in the 4th or 5th round because it's the Jets. Okay, we're lucky to get something out of our first rounders. So at the end of the day, that to me was the ultimate disappointment because Beningo is chiming in saying, "Oh, we could get him now at 72." This was Friday after the first round, right? He said he saw, and look, Joe Beningo is, again, he knows a lot about the Jets. He's a knowing guy, right, Paul?
All right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
He was stammering about taking Shedeur Sanders at 72. I can only imagine what he was doing like I was doing in that 5th round pick going, oh, my God, he's going to fall to us. Oh, there he is. And Jets select Frankie Maguga Booba. And everybody in the chat, every guy, Dom C and all these guys, they're going, who is this guy? Wait, I don't think I did any work on him. And they worked on everybody on the draft but this guy. And we all of a sudden found one out of the deep blue sea. Muji found somebody. Drew, come on now. What are you thinking about that? What do you think? Should we take a quarterback or not?
So again, I understand. Like when you have a guy that's talked about in the regard that Shedeur Sanders was throughout this whole draft process, when he falls to you on day 3, I understand the appeal. Again, I'm somebody that I was out as a whole on this quarterback class. I don't think I was not a fan of any of these guys past Cam Ward. But when you're looking at the process overall as a whole, I think when you sign a guy like Justin Fields, when you're at the state the Jets are in right now, you're in kind of a launching pad where the Jets are. You have the good bones of a roster. You just need the final piece in a quarterback. I think this year you just live and die by Justin Fields. Either Fields develops into a guy that is because you're not going to get a middle ground with Fields. Like he's either going to develop into the guy you want and somebody you can trust in your future, or he's going to be really, really bad and you're going to be in position for a guy next year. I know it's always easy to say next year's quarterback class, just kick the can down the road. But as a guy who I've already done work on the 26th quarterback class, these guys are good next year. Like this is going to be a great quarterback class. And I think you just have to trust in the process behind Justin Fields, and either he's going to be good and somebody you can believe in, or he's going to get you in range to get somebody who is. So I understand the thought process behind taking flyers in the quarterback position on day 3. But at the end of the day, I think it's a Band-Aid, and you have to let it bleed at some point.
Yeah, but true. Here's the way I look at it. Okay. I looked at, and again, I'm not a draft guy. Okay. I'll say that right away going in. I've been saying that to Paul right along, but you got to say, if we're going to attack the draft class next year at quarterback, and assuming we're going to take a guy at 1 or 2, now you're taking a chance and paying a guy big dollars. Let's not forget, you're paying a first-round quarterback. How much? You're paying a guy. How much does a first-round quarterback make? Like $18 million? I mean, they're going to make big money.
Yeah, let me see.
I mean, look at the difference between a first-round quarterback and a 5th-round quarterback. It's amazing. That's my point, Drew. If you can get a Will Howard, and we don't know. Look, Gruden loved Will Howard. He loved the kid from Syracuse. How much better are the guys you did homework on 26 than those guys? Maybe I'm missing something, but is there quarterbacks that much better clearly than what we had in this draft? I don't know. Jackson Dart, everybody was like, this guy doesn't look so great, this and that and the other thing. Look, the Giants took him in the first round. The kid, 3 or 4 other quarterbacks went before Shedeur Sanders. And I'm going to tell you something. Nobody liked Marino. Nobody liked Drew Brees. Nobody liked any of these other guys, and they end up being Hall of Famers. And like I said, just take a guy in the 5th round. You had 3 shots at the wheel for a $4 million quarterback as a backup. Because, look, Justin Fields runs the ball, okay? You mean to tell me it's a guarantee this guy's going to play 17 games healthy? You don't know. He might get hit the first game, and now we're sitting at Tyrod Taylor. And like I said, many teams are sitting looking at their 3rd quarterback. And I'm telling you right now, there'll be crickets at MetLife Stadium. God forbid Justin Fields either gets hurt or he's worse than he was, or equal to what he was with the Bears, because let's face it, he's throwing to weapons that look more like the Bears than they do Pittsburgh. I mean, right now, unless we do something major, right? I mean, he's throwing to a rookie tight end. He's got Garrett Wilson, who they're going to double up and down all the way over the place. Maybe, we get more production out of the running back room. But I got to tell you, that was a big miss. You got to take a shot on a quarterback because you never know. And to get one for $4 million and say, nah, we don't need that. We got Justin Fields. Come on.
Fair enough, Neil. Fair enough. There's a lot going on there. So I will never forget that they took the Miami linebacker Hakuna Matata. Oh, Neil. I would say this just to sort of wrap it all up. I would take a quarterback every year. And even when I have a quarterback, I'd take a quarterback. And there's a few of these guys that sort of intrigued me. Again, they ultimately, Jets had chances, but they didn't take them. Jalen Milroe, I liked. Kyle McCord, I liked. And then especially Shedeur falling all the way down that he fell. I was like, oh, baby, I'm all over that. And again, me and Drew have very different opinions about Shedeur as a random example. So again, I would have done it. The Jets didn't. So we'll see. The Jets are obviously the message coming out of this draft that's sent to the rest of the universe is we built around Justin Fields and we believe in Justin Fields. We could have pressed all of these buttons at different rounds to take a quarterback at 42, Milroe, all those guys were there outside of Shuck, who I think was taken at 40, but all the rest of them were all there for the Jets. They didn't take him. They didn't take the cheese. I think that means they're giving Justin Fields a chance, and he's either going to blow it or not. I think the worst part of option C that Drew did not mention as a possibility is what if Justin Fields is good enough for you to be mediocre, and then you're 8-9? That's the worst place to be. And then you're like, Fields sort of showed something. I want the extreme. Either he's the superstar, all right, the question's answered, or he's god awful, and all right, well, I guess we're at the top of this thing. Let's take care of it. That's what you want to hope for. Again, I like that they're giving him a chance, and we'll see what happens with it. So.
Yep, I think that the QB purgatory is where you don't want, like you said, where you don't want to end up is where you're stuck in the middle ground with no QB solution. Which you would hope the front office sees it as very black and white. Like either Justin Fields is the guy or he isn't. And if you're in the middle ground, you just got to look to move on. And that year that his deal is basically a 1-year deal. That's where all the guarantees are. So I'm putting faith in them to see it that way.
All right. Well, Drew, I just want to thank you for, again, because of how all this came about, of you joining us midway through the season because of everything going on. It was awesome to have you on the show all draft along whenever that started. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but whatever it was awesome to have you on the show, taking all the callers, having fun with our gizmos and gadgets and mock drafts and Hakuna Matatas and God knows what and everything in between. It was a lot of fun, man, and I hope this is something we could do moving forward because this was sick. Your draft coverage is only going to continue to explode, so don't forget us little people when we see on ESPN and doing all these television drafts and all that jazz. So just want to say thanks for playing around with us on this show. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, Paul. I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank everybody enough who watched these shows and tuned in every Monday. It was such an incredible opportunity to be on here the past 6 weeks. It was so much fun. I hope to do it again next year or whenever I can be on next. But yeah, I just want to thank you again so much for having me on. It's been an incredible opportunity.
Well, thanks, you guys, and thank you, everybody, for all the questions and comments and everything that came through. And when other draft things come up, we'll try to bring Drew on the show for sure. Thank you to the 700 people live in the room right now. Appreciate you, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow morning for Boy Green Daily. Take